Good evening, good weekend, not legal advice. Please like, subscribe, comment, share, and again, please share with your dogs. They love these videos. So I wanted to talk a little bit. I've been hearing recently amongst the MMTLP community discussion of various remedies, and I did discuss this probably a couple months ago, and I just kind of wanted to generally go over a few things, remedies that we can get when we're involved with securities problems. I'm not a securities lawyer, not my specialty. I'm a lawyer, but not a securities lawyer. So I make that preface and do your own whatever and study it. Um, and before we kind of get into, I'm going to try to do this quickly. Hopefully, it will make things clear or provide some guidance. Before I get to that, I went to a seafood disco last week, but ended up pulling a muscle. Anyway, uh, besides whatever else I'm going to tell you here, um, before you make, and I've repeated this throughout, and I think I'm going to repeat it again, before you make any major decision about what you're going to do with regarding the MMTLP situation or any securities issue or any legal issue, make sure you get expert advice from someone you trust. That is really essential. And again, it's not because of only the expert advice, it's also because that will be insurance for you. In effect, you can rely upon that expert's opinions, and that does provide you some insurance, to be quite honest. So that's why I always say check it out. So, um, and I'm going to go over a few items. You could do multiple of these items at the same time. So even though I'm going to list, I think, 6 things, there may be multiple of these items going on at the same time. I know there's concerns about doing things that might impact Congress's actions, and I'm aware of that. I'm not directing anybody do anything. All I'm doing here is just kind of basically point out options, at least options I saw. I'm sure there's other options. I'm sure other people have other opinions. So hopefully this will um, clarify things. So what can you do? So you're in an MMTLP situation, and what are your options? At least this is the way I'm thinking about it. I could do nothing. I could just kind of let my shares sit in whatever brokerage and see what happens and see how it plays out. Definitely a possibility. I don't know how it's going to play out. I have an expectation, but I don't know. Two, my shares are at Fidelity, so I could leave my shares at Fidelity, for example, and they are currently at Fidelity. What I could do also is I could transfer my shares to AST, or I can make a request to Fidelity to transfer my shares to AST. And I have actually made a request that Fidelity, actually, counsel for Fidelity, transfer a small number of my shares to AST, and it is a small number I'm referring to. And there's a legal reason I'm doing that. So I'm not making any recommendation that anybody do it or not do it. Um, so, and I understand the difference, and the thought process is if you transfer it from your brokerage to ASC, that you might be losing out on certain remedies. I guess that's perhaps, but we're all speculating as to that. So I don't know if there's any advantage keeping it at your broker, or if there's an advantage keeping them at AST. We'll have to see. I have an action that's out for service because they're kind of an odd situation, but it's out for service against AST. I'm trying to obtain the current share count that they have regarding NextBridge MMTLP shares. But I have no particular ill will towards AST. I just want to find out that information. So you could transfer it to AST, and that's an option also. So do nothing, transfer it to AST. 3, and I think said 6. 3 and 4 I kind of put together, but they could be individual. You can ask Congress and the media to take action. And obviously, plenty of people are interacting with Congress Congress. various aides, various congressional representatives, senators, etc. And also, obviously, there's people interacting with the media. So that's another route that is being taken and can be taken. Um, and I don't know how successful that will be, but people are using their best efforts, and it's appreciated. And hopefully, it will be successful. Again, either Congress, media, or some combination. So that's 3 and 4, and that's ongoing. And I know there is some concern, or there was some concern, and I don't know how it's going to be interpreted. So it's my speculation. But there was some concern that there was some language saying from Congress saying that if there was class action lawsuit, that might impede their investigation. I don't know if that is real in terms of that they will enforce that if that were to occur. I don't know. They didn't seem to mention arbitration, so arbitration would appear to be able to go forward without that same threat. But again, we don't know what will happen. So anyway, so that's 1, do nothing. 2, AST. 3, Congress and the media take action, seek intervention, seek help. I know people are doing that. Much appreciated. 4, hire your own lawyer. So it probably requires you to have enough money to be able to afford your own lawyer. It probably also would imply that you had enough shares at issue that it was worth doing that. Now, perhaps there might be some actions that a lawyer could take representing multiple clients, and they would kind of split up a fee or something along those lines. That could be tricky because you might end up with conflicts between those parties. For example, let's say some of them want to settle for this number and others want to settle for another number. That could create complexity. I'm not going to really focus on that. But if you could afford your own lawyer and if those other avenues aren't working and you have the money for it, you could certainly do that. So what would you do? So this is kind of, I'm trying to be helpful here in terms of what I would do. If I was looking for a lawyer, what kind of questions would I ask a lawyer? So first of all, I would find out what kind of specialty the lawyer is and make sure they're a specialist in the area that I'm searching. For example, so my specialty is real estate and business litigation, some other stuff too, but that's really my specialty. So if there was a real estate litigation question, somebody had a real estate litigation question, then that would be within my specialty. If you're looking for a securities lawyer, that's what you're looking for. So you're looking for a securities lawyer with expertise, and perhaps if they have expertise in naked shorts or the subject matter, that's even better. You want to tell them what your expectations are about what do you think is going to happen, and you want to hear what their goals are. So you want to make sure that what you're expecting and want and what the attorney thinks they can do, if those two things meet. We don't want to, expect or be told one thing and then end up being disappointed in the end. So that's important to ask also. You want to ask the time. How much time is this going to take? A lot of the stuff they're going to say, I can't really tell you exactly. You're not asking for an exact. Ask for a range. Give me a range of time. How long is it going to take? Is it going to take 12 months, 12 to 18 months, 12 to 24 months? Historically speaking, in cases you've handled, how long does it take in this particular jurisdiction? So you want to ask those specific questions. You want to ask how much of it in costs is it going to cost? So we have costs and legal fees. Costs would be like transcripts, filing fees, etc. So you may want to ask if they have an estimate of costs, because again, you don't want to be surprised down the road. If it's an hourly or some fee like that that increases based upon time, you want to get an estimate about how much it's going to cost. Again, the lawyer may not be able to give you a precise number, but they may be able to give you a range. You can even ask for a budget if you want. so they could break down numbers for them. And if it's on an hourly, they could say, for example, up through this point, they're estimating 150 hours times $500, and I'm just making up numbers, but you get that. But again, it's important to know what the fee is going to cost, because you don't want to win and then lose because you spent so much on legal fees. You want to ask that person, and you can give them some time to contemplate this, because when someone first meets you, they don't know your case in total. So it might take them a while to meet you, go through some documents, think about it, and then they may have a conclusion. But I think you want to ask them what they see as the strengths and weaknesses of the case, so you have an idea. Because we all, when we're involved in a case, it's our case, we kind of lose objectivity and we interpret subjective facts in a particular way. So it's helpful sometimes to have a objective voice to give us their interpretation of strengths and weaknesses. And that's about it. You can other questions as they come up. Generally, like anything else, if you feel it's going well, if the person seems to be speaking to you, then that's great. But if you get bad feelings about them, then let your intuition carry that too. But those are kind of some of the questions I would ask if I was going to hire a lawyer. And that would be in whatever situation, notwithstanding MMTLP, that would be any situation outside of that, any dispute. I'd ask kind of those series of questions, and then I'd make a determination based upon my own gut feeling. No problem if you don't like the lawyer and you don't want to hire them. That's kind of the nature of the beast. They won't take offense to it, so you can move on to somebody else. So now the fifth way that I could approach this is through arbitration. That's what I chose, and you could do the other things too, by the way. So obviously you could leave your shares at your broker or transfer them to AST. You could be involved in congressional and media outreach, and you could still file arbitration. All those things. Or you could not file arbitration. So arbitration is different than hiring your own lawyer to pursue kind of a much bigger lawsuit. Arbitration is generally against the broker. So in my case, I'm suing Fidelity. And it's not as good as having an individual action in court, but it's better than not. And again, it's kind of, you have to analyze what's going on, how much time has passed, and which one of these remedies you want to take advantage of. Because maybe you have plenty of patience and you want to see how things work out and you're not concerned. But if at some point in time people want to take advantage of that, they can. I don't think it would be interfere with other things. But anyway, arbitration, you have in your contract with your broker, you have an arbitration provision. Almost certainly, you have a right to conduct an arbitration. And if we're using MMTLP, you'd sue your broker, as I did, and you could file whatever claims you have against them, and then your dispute would be heard by either a 1 or 3 person panel, depending on the amount of the claim. You could have a lawyer represent you, or you could do it on your own. It would be nice. I've always wished that this would happen, that there would be mass filings of arbitration against the brokers involving MMTLP and all other, securities, because I don't think they would know how to deal with it. But anyway, I understand people's reluctance. If I were to do it and I was not doing it my own, I would only do it with a lawyer that would handle it on a contingency. In other words, would take only a percentage and I wouldn't have to pay anything out of my pocket. Again, I would ask those questions that I just referenced when hiring any lawyer, and I would see if they had experience in handling arbitrations, for example. That would be one thing. The expectation is you, again, wouldn't get as big an award as you would in a court, especially in front of a jury, but it might be another way of getting a resolution. It won't apply to everybody else. It may be difficult for a lot of people. May be difficult finding an attorney, especially if your share count is really low. but it is an option. And again, I will keep you apprised of mine as we go forward. And of course, I would have preferred not having to file an arbitration. I would have preferred if this would had been resolved without me having to pursue an arbitration. But I did. I decided, and it's just my time. So that's what I'm doing. And I will continue to keep people apprised. Last update was we're at an impasse about whether the arbiters should acknowledge their position on naked shorting before we have to choose them. And we have a dispute at the current time. That's where we are right now. And again, I'll keep you apprised in terms of that. And last, in terms of what I'm presenting here, last of the remedies or the processes to kind of deal with the securities issues in order would be a class action. And that may happen anyway. There may be lawyers down the road that decide they want to assert class actions based upon share count claims. I know that there has been some discussion about existing class actions. I think that occurred with regard to the original Torchlight merger. I don't think it involves the share count or claims regarding the share count. I know I haven't received any notice of that. And I think there's a class action and there's a derivative action. Class action basically means the shareholders share in the proceeds, and a derivative action means the company, in essence, shares in the proceeds. And then there may be a dividend paid out to shareholders. So there's a couple, I think, from 2022 that exist as to MMTLP, but not as to the issues that are before us now. So I think that there may be lawyers down the road that are looking for cases and may pursue it. And that's not a decision you have to make at this point in time, by the way. Unless you are, so in a class action, there is a lead plaintiff or can be lead plaintiffs. So those people might have special damages, might get an extra benefit out of it, an extra amount of money when a payout is split up. So that's one way a class action would work. But the way it generally works is it's filed and then there's a bunch of legal proceedings, because to get a class usually certified can take usually up to 2 years or so, plus or minus. So at some point in time, you'll get a notice about the class action, and if it's certified and it's going forward, you'll be able to opt in. So I don't think there's a great rush. It's certainly good in terms of you don't have to spend money for a lawyer. That part's good. I don't like it in terms of the ultimate damage awards, which are usually substantially less than if you had gone to court. I think it would be less than even an arbitration award that you're successful at. However, if a class action ends up being the only remedy that's left for you, then it is. And, if the 5 things that I mentioned, if, we're talking a year from now and nothing else has happened, and I'm just making this stuff up, but a year passes and none of the 5 things I mentioned have yielded positive results, and some guy or some firm is doing a class action and you get a notice, then maybe that's something you want to consider. But it's not, in my experience, the remedies aren't great. It's maybe better than nothing. It may be the best under the circumstances, but usually damages are limited. Lawyers do okay. The defendants probably do okay also. So that's, and it takes, again, a couple of years for the class to get certified. So this is a long, drawn-out proceeding. So not my favorite, but again, if that's what you're left with, that's what you're left with. And again, one of the benefits is you have lawyers who are handling it, no cost to you. That is a big benefit. And there may be multiple class actions, multiple claims. You might qualify for multiple claims. You might be able to get multiple hits, but that's kind of how it works. So kind of like, again, going over the list: do nothing, transfer the AST, Congress and the media, hire your own lawyer and pursue your own action, arbitration, and class action. And again, I kind of see that in an order. And you have to judge your circumstances and where you are in the timeline to see where you choose to and what you choose to do. Anyway, hope this helps. I'm not suggesting you do any of these. I just kind of wanted to go through them and indicate that they're all possible resolutions. And um, if there's any questions you have, anything I can help, or little tiny JR, Mr. Tiny JR, that we can help with, happy to do so if we can answer. Again, not a securities lawyer, so I base this based upon my own experience as a lawyer handling arbitrations, trials, etc. But I'm not a class action lawyer also for various reasons. Anyway, hope that helps. If you have questions, let me know. Be well. Take care. Have a great weekend. By the way, JR, Tiny JR, Mr. Tiny JR, and a guest. Sunday at 6:30 Eastern. See you then.